What up, guys? So we're trying a new platform out, so we'll have to see how this all goes. Um, so if y'all want to give me some feedback, make sure y'all can hear me and everything, and then we shall get into the gravy. But yeah, I'm trying out the new app. It should be pretty cool. And of course, we are talking about the infamous, incestuous Grabbler, known as Albert Einstein, the deified figure in the religion that is heliocentrism. So we should have some good time. All right, awesome. Y'all can hear me. I don't know why the chat is not loading. Oh, here we go. Yeah, awesome. So I can put y'all's I can put y'all's comments on there now. Boom. Oh yeah, we're in there like swimwear. All right, so let's just get into the gravy. Hope everybody's doing good. Yeah, this is pretty awesome. I love it so far. It costs money, but I mean, it's just I like it. All right, so I think most people know, but uh, one of the most infamous things that Albert Einstein is attributed to him is the theory of relativity. Simply, mass and energy are interchangeable. It imposes the idea of warped space time, curved space. Space is, of course, nothing. It is a concept about nothing, literally. It's a privation. That just means it's nothing in and of itself. I know many of you have heard me talk about this, so I won't beat that into your head again. But the theory of relativity is a reification fallacy because it attributed a property to a privation. A privation cannot have properties. An example of a privation is a shadow. A shadow is an absence of light. It can only have attributes, such as it's colder when you stand in the shadow, but it does not have properties because it is nothing. It is a privation. Space is a privation. You cannot attribute a property known as curved to space. So right there, we have refuted the nonsense that is the theory of relativity. Right there. So, there you go. Can you please start the live streams at 10? I can't keep getting 5 hours of sleep over 1 hour earlier. I'm trying to figure out how to keep everybody happy. I don't know. Y'all give me some feedback. If I didn't have to work in the day, I'd go like 9 in the morning or something. But I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go during, Jeranism's show tonight. Jeranism Raw on Monday nights with him and David Weiss, and that's from 8 to 10 my time. So that's why I decided to go at 10 because that's the homie. But we'll figure it all out. So let's see. If you don't know much about this Grabbler, this is who we're discussing tonight. Yeah, this dude. This guy. I'm neither clever nor especially gifted. I'm only very, very curious. Yeah, you don't say, Albert. I want to know how God created this world. I want to know his thoughts. I bet you do, you Grabbler. You cannot understand God. It's God. How could you understand how God made the world? You couldn't even adequately explain observations post creation. So here's something I had never heard. Some of you may have heard. It's very real. In 1931, 100 prestigious Austrian and German scientists contributed to a book entitled 100 Autoren gegen Einstein, which just means 100 authors against Einstein, in which they denounced Albert Einstein and accused him of leading science into the realm of pseudo-mysticism, abstraction, and speculation. And yes, of course, this is what he did. Again, he imposed a reification fallacy onto the world that attributed a property to a privation. It's retarded. Nikola Tesla, the inventor of the modern world, let us know that it was retarded, and he was a genius. He didn't have to steal his work. He didn't have to do grabbler things such as marry their cousin. He very simply, because of equal and opposite reactions, the bodies acting on each other to create a curve, then they would straighten out. And for the simple fact alone that a property cannot be attributed to a privation, it's a reification fallacy. It reified space. So yeah, of course they did this. And we know what the public narrative is of Germany. I am not in any way advocating their historical action, but indisputably, they were very, very smart people. They were advanced, undeniably. That's why we took them over here in Operation Paperclip. We took German scientists over here, and then Werner von Braun is the lead of the space program at NASA, a Nazi, like an SS soldier, not just some random dude. They were really smart. That's my point. They were really smart. They had enough of this grabbler. He had to go. And they got together and all contributed to a book exposing his nonsense because they felt that it was that important. They could see the writing on the wall that he was going to derail and devolve science. The question is, who has this vested effort to have promoted him at the top of our historical recollection of science? Like, doesn't that seem odd? It's going to get a bit more odd, ladies and gentlemen. Let me come see what y'all are talking about. See if I can throw some of y'all up here. I forgot. Yeah, so I'll have to get used to the throwing things up there. It's my man's. I hope no one's uncomfortable because y'all are getting thrown up on the stream. All right, so let's just take a look at some of this stuff. What this little grabbler was up to. All right. You don't have to be Einstein to make a marriage work. In fact, you probably shouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? He was an incestuous crab. Elsa Einstein was born Elsa Einstein on January 18th, 1876. That's not a mistake. Elsa's father was Rudolf Einstein, the cousin of Albert Einstein's father. I'll read that again. Elsa's father was Rudolf Einstein, the cousin of Albert Einstein's father. That's not as strange as it gets, though. Her mother and Albert's mother were also sisters. So Elsa and Albert Einstein were actually first cousins. That's not weird. Elsa changed her name when she married her first husband. The two had 3 children before getting divorced in 1908, and Elsa regained her maiden name when she married Albert. Albert was married before marrying his first cousin to Maria. I don't know how to speak other languages or pronounce them. I'm going to stick with English or American English pronunciation. She was a Serbian mathematician. You know who else was Serbian? Nikola Tesla. Yeah, they had some IQs. This girl was smart. Of course, this is back when, women were, you know, held in their place, if you will, right? And so I don't agree with that, obviously. But strong male leadership is vital. Anyway, okay, so he was married to a Serbian mathematician. They were married in '03. Einstein was initially charmed and impressed by Maria. An archive of nearly 1,400 letters written by Einstein gave evidence they became detached and even cruel to his wife. Yeah, he was a grabbler. Um, and I'm tired. I'm tired of this dude being glorified. He has devolved and derailed science. The theory of relativity has put a halt to real science. And just like Tesla said, without acknowledging the ether, one will never be able to adequately explain the movement of the celestial bodies. It's a futile pursuit destined to oblivion. And it is, of course, and that is what has been happening for decades because of this grappler. All right. Margaret died in 1986, and had specified when she donated the letters that they weren't to be released until 20 years after her death. Okay, so in one letter to his first wife, he gives her a meticulous list of what she should do for him and how their marriage should operate. You will see to it that my clothes and linen are kept in order, that I am served 3 regular meals a day in my room. You will renounce all personal relations with me, except when these are required to keep up social appearances. Sounds like a healthy relationship. In addition, he wrote, you will expect no affection from me, and you must leave my bedroom or study at once without protesting when I ask you to. What a charming lad we got here. Meanwhile, Albert started getting close to Elsa, around 1912, while he was still married to Maria. Yeah. Though the two had grown up spending time with each other, being cousins, it was only around this time that they developed a romantic correspondence with one another. Okay, whatever. It's gross. It's gross. Shortly after his divorce was finalized when they got married, but a letter showed that he wasn't in much of a rush to do so. We don't care. Just like with his first wife, Albert's enchantment with Elsa turned to detachment. He had affairs with a number of young women. Yep, he's a grabbler. Once during their marriage, Elsa discovered that Albert had a brief affair with one of her friends. Albert wrote to Elsa in regards to the affair, simply stating, one should do what one enjoys and won't harm anyone else. Does that sound familiar? One should do what one enjoys. Do as thou wilt. Oh, the gravy's coming. We're just stirring the pot. Elsa's children from their first marriage allegedly viewed Albert as a father figure. But he also developed an infatuation with her eldest daughter, whatever her name is. In one of the most startling revelations, Albert had considered breaking off his engagement to Elsa and proposing to 20-year-old Ilsa instead. Married your first cousin. Okay, so he married a woman, treated her like a slave. She was really brilliant. We'll get into her role in his mathematical computing that was attributed to him via the theory of relativity. She was a Serbian mathematician. They get a divorce. He's cheating on her the whole time, right? Like the grabbler he is. And side note, dude, just don't be with someone if you're going to cheat on them, bro. That's disgusting, bro. That's what weak people do, man. Anyway. And then they get a divorce. Immediately he gets married to his first cousin. And he cannot stop there. He then wants to divorce her and marry her daughter. at 20 years old, and he wrote about it. He couldn't even keep his grabbler thoughts to himself. He had to just throw them in the world. He had to write them down, you know. Not reading that social justice warrior nonsense. Elsa received the news that her daughter had developed cancer. She was living in Paris at the time. Elsa traveled to France to spend time with her during her final days. She was plagued with health issues, so he didn't get to marry her. Okay, so yeah, basically, this is just a brief overcap of substantiating my constant phrase of the way that I present this little grabbler, and I say, the incestuous grabbler that is Albert Einstein. Objectively, married his first cousin. It's gross. Then he wanted to have sex with her 20-year-old daughter. Not sex, marry her. After she viewed him as a father figure. It's creepy, bro. It's creepy, bro. Let's see what y'all are talking about. Meaning of grabbler. Here, I'll throw that up there. The meaning of grabbler, it's got two B's. It just means the elite. It means the elite. It has no ethnic component to it the way that I use it. My connotation means the elite, the ones that sit behind the scenes in the shadows and grabble. They subvert. They perform wizardry, right? That's what I call them, grabblers. You can call them the elite, call them the cabal, call them the powers that be, call them the Illuminati. I call them the grabblers. Oh yeah, I think he's Luciferian. Do as thou wilt. Yeah, that's a classic joke right here. Oh, my man always coming in dropping some gems. Quantum entanglement, double slit, and instant quantum reaction destroys relativity and the theory of maximum light speed. All quantum physicists have agreed on this for about half a century, but we haven't been told that. And the theory of relativity's nonsense is still propagated. Why, bro? If you can get yourself to unplug from the box, you will then begin to realize it's all about the whys. It's all about the whys. You obviously have to come across the information to then deduce the motivation. But yeah, quantum science is retarded. All right, let's just move on. All right. This guy's such a grabbler, man. Stop deifying immoral, overinflated, chosen puppets. It is how they keep you in the box. Like how we use the term Einstein to reference genius. It's not a coincidence. It's the way it's been engineered. All right, so of course, Michelson Morley, they discovered that there was no movement. There was no movement. They expected a movement of the Earth relative to the ether to affect the perpendicular rays. There was slight movement, but not consistent with the movement of the Earth. So this is where Einstein had to come in and attempt to dismiss the ether and that thus birth the theory of relativity. But as we're going to see, did he do that? Is he even the true origin of what is attributed to him? And again, what's attributed to him is nonsense. It's a reification fallacy that attributed a property to a privation. This is an objective statement, so it doesn't matter what someone thinks about it. How could you know? You dropped out of college and all the scientists. You mean all the scientists that said you came from apes? All the scientists that said everything came from nothing? All the scientists that swear up and down it's heliocentric, but axial rotation has never been proven, nor has the curvature. Those same scientists that constantly have to shuffle their feet and explain away things, can't even explain instantaneous action at a distance, can't even explain light going through water. So high IQ means nothing without wisdom or discernment. And so that's what modern science is. Like I always say, it's scientists stroking each other's ego with theoretical equations and math. Okay, so yeah, we know this is why Einstein had to introduce his nonsense. I mean, I guess I could go over a little bit of this. I don't know how much y'all know. Professors Michelson and Morley were the two halves of the famous team who conducted experiments on the speed of light. At that time, all scientists believed in the existence of an invisible ether which carried light waves, and that's still the case. They supposed that the ether would cause a drag on the speed of light as the Earth raced around the sun at 30 kilometers a second, or over 108,000 kilometers per hour. To their astonishment, no variation in the speed of light was found. This is, of course, because the Earth is stationary and geocentric and flat. Um, and of course, there is no constant speed of light. It's a rate of induction. Light is an ether perturbation. So that's why they can't explain these experiments to this day, right? Like instantaneous action at a distance. Because light is an ether perturbation, it manifests as a coaxial circuit, a dielectric coaxial circuit, which at the intersections has dielectric pulses that are immaterial, but they are pulsating climaxes of the dielectric charge along the coaxial circuit, attributing physicality to the immaterial that is the dielectric pulse is where we get the photon, so they could quantify quantum physics. Light is an ether perturbation relative to the medium that is the ether and a variance of factors. Speed of light is a rate of induction. It is not constant. It's a rate of induction to the ether. It's ether perturbation. It's a disturbance in the ether. That's what light is. This was well known prior to all this graveling. And this is why they can't explain the double slit experiment adequately, because they're operating off the base presumptions of the way that light works, and it's characterized inaccurately. It doesn't have a constant speed. It isn't a physical particle traveling from point A to point B. So it's important to kind of understand that as we go through this. Michelson's basic experiment was to shoot a beam of light horizontally and vertically over a fixed distance. The speed of the Earth through the ether should slow the vertical light. The results were also always the same and showed no change. And there was a slight derivation in a window of error because of the slight ether drift over top of the stationary Earth. So when people present this as saying that they disproved the ether, if that's patently false, it represents either a misunderstanding of the experiment or a deliberate intent to misrepresent the experiment. Right? The experiment didn't really do much of anything other than discredit the current connotation of the ether relative to the movement of the Earth that was being imposed on the understanding of the observations. And so people like to bring this up, but it does not help their arguments. They're just parroting. They think this disproved the ether, and it in no way did. It showed slight movement in the window of error. The ether's there. And you can't explain observable phenomena without the ether. I know people disagree with me. Agree to disagree. Either way, we're going to dismantle the religious doctrine that is the theory of relativity coming from this incestuous graveler. If you want to agree with me or disagree with me on the ether, that's your prerogative, you know. But I think it's important to point that out while we're seeing words like the speed of light all over this article. When there is no constant speed of light, it's a rate of induction into the ether. It's an ether perturbation, a derivation of the ether, a disturbance in the ether. Everything is relative to the ether. It's the absolute frame of reference to the universe. And like I said, agree, disagree, or whatever. But this is widely known and accepted amongst top-level physicists that this argument is still alive, that there's an absolute frame of reference. And they cannot acknowledge the ether, so they call it quantum foam, quantum fields, quantum energy, Higgs boson field, all this nonsense, the Higgs field, the boson's a particle. But they cannot acknowledge either, so they're giving all these different characteristics or labels to observable phenomena that's actually all operating within the ether, but it's being misclassified, mischaracterized because of the imposition of the theory of relativity. It has literally devolved science. So it's important that we expose this grappler. Look at this. In 1890, Rockefeller took over a Baptist seminary called Morgan Park Theological Seminary and renamed it the University of Chicago. I'm sure we've all heard of Rockefeller, right? Paid a scientist off the Geneva Convention, paid for the definition of oil as fossil fuels. After serving as professor at Clark University in Massachusetts from 89 to 92, Michelson was appointed professor and the first head of the Department of Physics at the newly organized University of Chicago, again founded by Rockefeller. Okay. With this big salary from Rockefeller and the Nobel Prize money, Michelson was content not to make waves about the non-motion of the Earth. In 24, Michelson received a huge grant from the university in order to determine the rotation of the Earth by using the speed of light. The test consisted of a long 12-inch tunnel with all the air removed, a 12-inch, mile-long vacuum tube. As expected, all the results were negative because the Earth is stationary, of course. Michelson conducted his Earth rotation experiments in Clearing, Illinois. All the results were negative. Yes, of course. All right, now let's see what his now to preface this, I am very vocal about you don't need to go to college. Do not depend on authoritative figures to teach you or teach you how to think or give you permission on what to think or what to believe. They're indoctrination camps. Universities are indoctrination camps. They're worse now than ever. Now they have a social agenda. It's social justice warrior indoctrination camps, in which you can regurgitate this nonsensical implementation of the brainwash they want you to succumb to. Then you get, good favor with whatever professor it is. I've had professors that keep it real with me, pull me out of the room. They're like, you're gifted, blah, blah, blah. And they try and actually care about you. But a lot of them don't. And if you are to ever challenge their broad, blind assertions they regurgitate, then you'll get kicked out. It's free thought seems to be stifled in university now. So to preface all that, I dropped out of college, don't regret it. Thank God I did. I agree with Mark Twain's sentiment, something to the effect of, yeah, I was educated before. It took me years to overcome it. So self-research is one of the only real ways to learn something, self-education. Now, don't get me wrong, people with more information and more experience than you and wisdom and retroduction and discernment, it's good to learn from people. We don't all know everything. I certainly don't. But I just wanted to kind of preface that. So this point is hit or miss, but it gives some context. Not that Einstein, was always blameless in these situations. Oh, actually, let's just get to this little piece of gravy right here. Well, I guess it's not a piece. So check this out. And I can link all these. Okay. At the first, on January 15th, 1931, the guests included the physicists and Nobel laureate Michelson and 200 members of the California Institute Associates. So Einstein visited Alfred Michelson from the Michelson-Morley experiment in 31. January 15th to 31, he had never met him. That's the first time he meets him, right? And again, understand the connections. You're going to have to unplug from the box, ladies and gentlemen. The theory of relativity was introduced because of the Michelson-Morley results, right? And so they had to get rid of the ether. And so then they misinterpreted Michelson-Morley. So Michelson-Morley and Einstein are quite related, right? Well, not literally related. He probably would have tried to marry him. So anyway, 1931, January 15th, he meets this dude, Michelson, right? January 15th, 1931. When did he die? May 9th, 1931. Maybe a coincidence. I just ladle gravy. You sift through the gravy. Seems odd. Didn't meet him his whole year or his whole life. Then boom, a couple months after he meets him, he dies. So we know that Einstein was obviously propped up on the stage of let's just say his handlers had chosen him to be the face of this, you know, groundbreaking new step in science, new stride in science, right? But it's actually devolved science. It devolved it. But all I'm saying is, I'm just letting you know, he met him for the first time, boom, he died. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I don't like to make assertions or anything like that. Now this is claiming that his wife wrote his relativity papers. So I will give you some context for that. Um, and oh, actually, I said I was going to read this again. I'm not a big fan of necessarily what authoritative figures say about you, but it does provide context. Now that Einstein was always now that he was always blameless in these situations and he knew it, he exasperated his autocratic professors because he regarded most of them as irrational or ignorant, and he showed it. Um, yeah, and then this is a quote to Einstein. You're enthusiastic, he conceded, but hopeless at physics. For your own good, you should switch to something else, medicine maybe, literature or law. So his professor didn't think he was very smart and thought he sucked at physics. But he ended up coming up with this Grabber theory that is just flooded in theoretical mathematical computing. So that doesn't really seem to add up. Well, let's add a little bit more here. I'll post these. These are long. But anyway, so Einstein, he went and tried to get in to engineering school, and he couldn't pass the base engineering exam, which was just testing his mathematical competence. Basic mathematical competence. He couldn't pass it. He failed it. So how did he then become this mathematical genius? He didn't, guys. He didn't. This lays it out thoroughly. He stole his work. He stole all of his work. So let's see. Okay, so the theory of relativity, right? If you don't know what the theory of relativity is, in the absence of acceleration, the laws of nature are the same for all observers. And since the speed of light is independent of the motion of its source, then the time interval between two events is longer for an observer in whose frame of reference the event occurs at different places than for an observer in whose frame of reference the event occurs in the same place. Energy and mass are interchangeable. There's a constant speed of light, and it imposes the property of curve onto space to explain the celestial bodies without the acknowledgement of the ether. Okay. But did he come up? He didn't even come up with this idea. So the story gets crazier the more that you go into it. So again, the idea is flawed in itself. But James Maxwell, who was obviously smarter than Einstein, he's the one that created the math behind it. And he's not the only one he stole his math from. But this theory has been validated by modern experiments, and this is the basis for modern physics. Wrong. Wrong. The theory is not in any way substantiated. The theory of relativity is a reification fallacy. Nevertheless, first of all, the idea that the speed of light was a constant and was independent of the motion of its source was not Einstein's at all, but was proposed by the Scottish scientist James Maxwell in 1878. He wrote an article in 1878 that was in the Encyclopedia Britannica, or how do I even say it? Yeah, Britannica, whatever. Britannica. Yeah, well. And by 1877, as a result of his work and the ensuing debate, the scientific community, particularly Lorentz, Michelson, and Morley, reached the conclusion that the velocity of light was independent of the velocity of the observer. He stole that. Okay, so this is the theory of relativity 13 years before Einstein's paper. Further, in 1892, Lorentz of the Netherlands proposed the same solution and began to greatly expand the idea. All throughout the 1890s, both Lorentz and Fitzgerald worked on these ideas and wrote articles strangely similar to Einstein's special theory, detailing what is known as the Lorentz-Fitzgerald contraction. And understand that the mathematical computing of the Lorentz-Fitzgerald contraction and the theory of relativity are the same thing. They are the same thing. Okay. Let's see what else he stole. In 1898, the Irishman Joseph Lamar wrote down equations explaining the Lorentz-Fitzgerald contraction and its relativistic consequences 7 years before Einstein's paper. By 1904, Lorentz transformations, the series of equations explaining relativity, were published by Lorentz. They described the increase of mass, the shortening of length, and the time dilation of a body moving at speeds close to the velocity of light. In short, by 1904, everything in Einstein's power regarding the special theory of relativity had already been published. The Frenchman Poincare, which I've told y'all about, he stole a lot of his math from the French mathematician Henri Poincare, 1898, written a paper unifying many of these ideas. He stated 7 years before Einstein's paper, "We have no direct intuition about the equality of two time intervals. The simultaneity of two events of the order of their succession, as well as the equality of two time intervals, must be defined in such a way that the statements of the natural laws be as simple as possible." And then the math was backed up at that moment. He stole all the math, bro. He failed his math exam to be an engineer, bro. It's wild, bro. It's wild. So yeah, I know this is a little heavy, or it's a little like word heavy, or whatever you want to call it, information heavy, but we got to expose this dude because he devolved science, bro. And I'm tired of hearing dumb people act like we're dumb because we expose the nonsensical assertion that is the theory of relativity, because the reification fallacy. So we're gonna prove this dude doesn't. He was just a grabbler, bro. Okay, so thus we see the only thing original about the paper was the term special theory of relativity. Everything else was plagiarized. Over the next few years, Poincare became one of the most important lecturers and writers regarding relativity, but he never in any of his papers or speeches mentioned Albert Einstein. Yeah, of course he didn't. Why would he? Why would he? I guess y'all can't even really read that. I'll just read it to y'all. Wow, I definitely can't read that. Sorry, guys. Obviously, I don't know anything about this. It's not a speed, it's a rate of induction. Indeed. That is what the speed of light is. It's a rate of induction to the ether. And it's very important to understand what that means. It's dependent on a variance of factors, including the medium that is the ether. So it isn't constant. It is not constant. I guess this is pretty cool. All right, I'm just gonna breeze through this, guys, and I'll link it because he stole everything. Stole everything. We'll just thus the experiments of Thomson, Kaufman, and finally, and most importantly, whatever that dude's name is, confirmed Maxwell's work. It's ludicrous to believe that Einstein developed this postulate, particularly in light of the fact that Einstein did not have the laboratory necessary to conduct the appropriate experiments, nor did he have the competent faculty. In this same plagiarized article of Einstein's, he suggested that the scientific community, perhaps it will prove possible to test this theory using bodies whose energy constant is variable to a high degree. This remark demonstrates how little Einstein understood about science, for this was truly an outlandish remark. By saying this, Einstein showed that he really did not understand the basic scientific principles, and he was writing about a topic that he did not understand. In fact, in response to the article, J. Preck remarked that such an experiment lies beyond the realm of possible experience. And of course, the theory of relativity in and of itself lies beyond theoretical possibility. Okay, so yeah, he stole all of his math, and this is laid out pretty thoroughly here. So take it or leave it. But we got some more gravy for you. So and back to his wife, his original wife. She was Serbian, mathematician. She was smart. And again, we read his quote about how he treated her. So there is an idea that is proposed that she helped him formulate the compilation of the thievery if you follow what I'm saying. She just helped him put it together. The more you look into it, this guy was a joke. They stole all of the mathematical computing to back his theoretical conceptual reification fallacy. He compiled their work and then pretended as if it was his own, and he couldn't even understand it. And that's when he put his theory. Well, when he put his theory out, it was flooded with mathematical errors, factually. So it's pretty crazy. This is a bit subjective of an article, but good luck trying to find information nowadays. They lived in this house 1903 to 1905, and of course 1905 is when Einstein published his paper on relativity. And so let's read what he wrote her. This is a letter from Einstein. We're going to skip down a little bit. I also assure you that no one here either dares to or wants to say anything bad about you. How happy and proud I will be when the two of us together will have brought our work on relative motion to a successful conclusion. This Forbes article is, of course, trying to explain that it doesn't mean what it says. Okay? But let's just read it. Unplug from the box. This dude said it in a letter to the woman herself. How happy and proud I will be when the two of us together will have brought our work on relative motion to a successful conclusion. And again, she was a Serbian mathematician that he met in class. So he stole all of his work. He stole all of his mathematical computing. He couldn't even pass the rudimentary exam testing his mathematical competence to get into engineering school. Then he had to go to a lower school, and once he graduated, they still wouldn't take him. So he had to go work as a clerk in a patent's office. So he couldn't even pass the base mathematical computing required to get into engineering school. And then he stole all of the mathematical computing from a variance of different actually smart people. And he admitted that his Serbian mathematician wife that he treated awful helped him with the compilation of his work regarding relativity. I don't really see how you can't put that together. And the powers that be were very complicit with promoting this grabbler. That's it all depends on like how in the box you are, I think, because that seems pretty point blank to me. Here we go with this gamma. Energy needs a medium to travel through, whether it is light or electromagnetic waves. Electromagnetic pulses need a pond to throw their stone in. If there's nothing, then there is no ripples. Exactly. And the analogy that he's referencing is what Tesla explained it as. It's ether is the pond. Okay, well, if the universe is the pond and you throw a rock in it and there are ripples, the ripples is the observable phenomena in the universe. The water itself is the ether. It is the absolute frame of reference, the black background, whatever's helping you formulate a visualization here. The water itself in the pond is the ether. It's the absolute frame of reference. There is a slight ether drift within the force field that is ether over top of the earth. Now that interpretation, application, and connotation is all consistent with observable phenomena. So if someone wants to argue it, go for it, go for it. But there's only been two proposals to interpret the natural world, and it is atomism, the cult of bombarding subatomic charge-carrying particles of pure random happenstance, and then ether, the harmonic existence of an absolute frame of reference. It is a field of force. I don't know if you actually thought that you were going to get responded to. I'm not reading that. My goodness, bro. Let's see what we have over here. And again, I mean, this dude knew. How would he not know? I'm neither clever nor especially gifted. I'm only very, very curious. Curious about things like, oh, I don't know, having sex with the 20-year-old stepdaughter of your wife. Is that the kind of stuff you're curious about? Imagine being such a devolved person, so deprived of morality that you can't keep your grabbler, incestuous, disgusting, depraving thoughts to yourself when you want to have sex with your cousin's daughter, that you had to write about it and seriously contemplating divorcing your wife so that you could marry her. That's his personal life. Yeah, well, we are correlating that to his dishonesty in his professional life. So you see the common theme here. And don't worry, it's not over. So, and again, this we were never told any of the true context of any of this. That should be a red flag, of course, unless you are a gamma and you're just over here trolling the stream and you're still in the box, then you'll think this is all coincidental. But there are no such things as repetitive coincidences. And this gives you another idea of him. I want to know how God created this world. I want to know his thoughts. You cannot know his thoughts, you grabbler. It's God. What are you talking about? You can't understand your own thoughts, bro. Look at this dude. And that is why we were never told about this. And that's why Germans were demonized. I am not justifying any historic German action. It's impossible to even know what really happened in history in entirety anymore. I don't care. No one cares. They were smart. They knew that he was an idiot. We weren't told about that. They were demonized. All objective. It is what it is. Yes, exactly. He was a thief. There's no basically. He literally stole it, bro. He stole his work, bro. He stole his mathematical computing, bro. This little incestuous grabbler, bro. Yeah, I have to agree with you, brother. Yeah, and how disgusting is that, bro? He married his first cousin to get close to the other. Classic grooming grabbler. Dude, she looked at him as a father figure, and he wanted to go strip her of that innocence. Like, dude, if I saw this dude right now, I don't know what I'd do. I don't have patience for that kind of stuff, man. And people like this guy, you know, deify this little incestual grabbler, but can never respond to the simplicity in the refutal of his theory, which is it's a reification fallacy. He reified space. Space is a privation. It cannot objectively, irrefutably, cannot have a property. It can't. It cannot. It cannot. So you're going to have to explain that, brother. But you've been told to believe this little incestuous grabbler is some important deified religious leader of your heliocentric religion. And so you cannot question your religious leaders, right? Because you got to unplug from the box, bro. Like, it's all good, bro. I know you're in the box, so it's not like I can't be patient with you. We know how it goes, bro. We were all in the box regarding certain things, right? Some of us have been truthers for a long time, right? But all of us heard that the earth was flat and laughed and thought it was completely retarded. Didn't even want to look into it. It was so retarded. Then we swallowed our pride and we're like, this will be easy. We'll just go disprove it without bias. That is the key. If you go disprove it with bias, you will get nowhere. You have to swallow your pride, bro. You have to swallow your pride. But I don't. How many flat earthers have been researching this for 4, 5, 6 years? How many flat earthers started researching it and didn't say anything for a year, year and a half? I guarantee you a ton. I guarantee you there are a ton of closet flat earthers because of people like you. as a general sentiment to anyone that acts and behaves as a gambler, not necessarily Greg, right? Because he's decently behaving himself. So, we think for ourselves, and that's all we're encouraging you to do. It's actually very, very, very important that you do that. So, for what it's worth, let's see what else this little grabbler was up to. I gotta put the screen back over. All right, here you go. To Einstein, everything was relative, but like Albert Michelson, he concluded that the speed of light was always the same and didn't change in it, and that's wrong objectively. Instantaneous action at a distance disproves the idea of a physical photon traveling from point A to point B at a constant speed. As does, again, light going through the medium of glass and water. That was the basis of all his ideas and experiments, the fixed speed of light. Which is why he was off the mark, bro, with his interpretations and his hypothesis. He was also very interested in another form of communication called ESP, or extrasensory perception. As an international scientist / celebrity, Einstein visited California in 1931, where he met Michelson, and then he died a couple months later. Now keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. As a guest for the California Institute of Technology. Early the following year, he had a chance to meet his best friend, the best-selling author Upton Sinclair, and attended a seance at his house in Pasadena, California. Okay. Well, what do you mean, a seance? You can see what this says right here. I can't really say I necessarily disagree. I do not encourage overly looking into the metaphysical reality when it comes to interacting with it. I've had some not so great experiences, so food for thought. But it's very real. It's very real. Sinclair practiced mental telepathy with his wife, Mary Craig, and a psychic named whatever. Don't care. Actually, that is the quote. So Helen Dukas, Einstein's secretary, gives a different account of Dude's psychic skills. I was at this seance, and I was frightened to death because before the sitting, Sinclair addressed us and said we shouldn't be afraid if suddenly the piano starts to play and flowers come down from above and so on. And the medium went into catalepsy. And that frightened me. Then, you know what happened? They all sat around the table, those scientists, Einstein, Tolman, and a doctor friend of ours. Sometimes Professor Einstein was in control. It was a real scary atmosphere. And oh my gosh, suddenly doorbell rang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. So he was admittedly interested in metaphysics, and not the right way. Okay, so he said, do as thou wilt, basically, to justify his adultery on his wife to her face. He treated her like she was less than human. He voiced supremacist ideologies, which I can't even probably read his unquotes because, apparently YouTube loves to censor people speaking truth. But he definitely expressed supremacist values, derogatory, holistic generalizations of the Chinese people, of Europeans. He said nothing brings him more joy than, how to say this, the infiltration of Palestine. So, supremacists, eugenics mentality, very intrigued and interested in the top proponents of the metaphysical understanding at the time, communication with the metaphysics, and he met Michelson, the guy who he had to explain away with the theory of relativity when it came to his observations, and then a couple months later he died. This was the grabbler chosen to be on the. This is speculation, take it with a grain of salt or whatever, man. But He was obviously the guy chosen to go at the forefront. He didn't even come up with all of the theories attributed to him, nor any of the math to back up his theories. He couldn't even do math. He couldn't even pass the math exam to get into school. It's wild. And then, of course, you understand. Well, well, they're keeping everything in the family. He seems to be connected to some pretty powerful families. He's supremacist. He was glorified by the same media owned by similar people. What's what's the reoccurring theme here? They choose who you are supposed to know about. We were taught about Thomas Edison, but not Nikola Tesla. It's the same thing. We should never have been taught about this Grabler who reifies space. Who gets glorified for a reification fallacy? And what kind of people decades later regurgitate his name as if it holds some weight? So let's see what else we got. Yep, here we go. And of course, fact checked everything I'm reading. Um, this has some subjectivity, but he did indeed die 2 months after meeting him for the first time. And it could be a coincidence. He was 79, but apparently he had a rigorous exercise program and was in good health until he met Einstein. I don't know, but odd, I would say. Odd. It's odd because of the experimental connection that exists. See, I don't agree with this article in entirety, of course. It starts talking about the atom bomb, and if you don't know, atom bombs are not real. All right, let's go full screen for the gravy. Atom bombs aren't real. Atom bombs, they're not real. So these nuclear weapons they scare you with, it's all good, bro. Nothing to be scared of. They're not real. Tesla disintegrated hundreds of atoms with millions of volts and nothing ever happened because atom bombs are not real. Splitting an atom does not create an incredible explosion that has now evolved into an implosion atom bomb. It is used to scare you. It is used to scare you. Oh, evidence that North Korea might be a CIA proxy state. How convenient. They're the ones that we're supposed to be always scared of when it comes to their nuclear capabilities. How come every year there's a new terrorist group with nuclear weapons? Every year. Yet we never see these nuclear weapons. There's only been, what, two dropped in the history of mankind? And there's a plethora of evidence that we just firebombed them. And that's what Japan said. Now we're getting into the realm of the war stream that they grappled. Whatever. Like it was illegal to report on the atom bomb in America. I wonder why. Only one person was approved, went to Japan, brought back the information, and any journalist in America that was to report on the story had to use only his information. And this was enforced by the threat of the death penalty for treason. That is very real. So Japan said they firebombed them. We supposedly dropped a nuclear bomb on the 7th, and then on the 8th, Russia sent a letter saying they were going to declare war, breaching their previous treaty, and that their attack would commence on the 9th. Then on the 9th, we dropped a second bomb, and they surrendered, but they surrendered because there was a million Russian troops coming from the north. Bit of a side note, but the point is, nuclear bombs do not exist. A train was working 2 days later. People still live there. Vegetation's fine, as is the wildlife. It isn't true. It's used to scare you. And that is the common theme with all of this. There's a common theme with all of this. As is the theory of relativity, coming from this incestuous Scrabbler, is so important because it makes you think it's vital to the heliocentric model, which imposes that you are this tiny speck of dust that means nothing. And you're in, potential danger at all times. An asteroid could hit you. Aliens can come. All kinds of nonsense to keep you in a state of perpetual fear with unsubstantiated propagations of lies. Is that an Orban insect? I don't know. I think, I don't really know. I saw something like that on my screen with them. Yeah, weather modification was declassified as early as like 1973. So when people tell you that geoengineering isn't real, well, they're just objectively don't know what they're talking about. How does everyone know each other? Real ones migrate to each other, bro. Yeah, I got a few more things. I'm just trying to think how far I can go. I'm not gonna censor myself, but that means I just shouldn't talk about something. I'm not gonna be able to skirt around it. Um, yeah, I didn't even keep it up. But I'll link all of this. This is explaining to you whenever they met for the first time in 31. Of course, Einstein came. Oh, I'm not even showing you the thing. Einstein came to America in 33. And so you need to understand the implications of these timelines, bro. Like, it's not coincidence. Like, the dude met Einstein in 31. He visited in California. And then he died a couple months later. And then Einstein came over here and was glorified as this incredible, genius that was on the frontier of science right after the very, you know, founder of the experiment that he had to explain away or had to dismiss the ether within died. And he was a eugenics supremacist, um, very subversive, stole all of his work, was abusive to his wife, was incestuous, wanted to have sex with her daughter. I mean, you can say it's just his personal life, but you need to unplug from the box, bro, because that is how you are able to put things together, is to be able to thoroughly understand the motive of whatever character is being assessed. His motives were obviously fame, notoriety, thievery, and lust, right? And his original publication of the theory of relativity had his wife's name on it as a co-author. Now, the official narrative, if you go to Google right now, will try to tell you that it was just a custom to do that. Okay, whatever. Her name was on the original publication, and then it was taken off of the publication. That's weird. And he wrote in his letter, I can't wait until we finish our theory of relative motion. It's crazy. So let's just kind of recap this here. This little grabbler right here. This little grabbler who wears women's shoes, he married a mathematician from Serbia that was super smart. She helped him with his theory of relativity, according to his own words. So call it what you want to. He said that in a letter to her. And he stole all of his math prior to that, and she just helped him compile. He wasn't smart enough to even compile the work he was stealing. That is what you take from this. The theory of relativity is a reification fallacy. It does not work. It does not work. So everything that this dude's glorified for is irrelevant. He got the Nobel Prize, and he stole that. He stole what he got the Nobel Prize for. History is a lie. The world is a stage, and the only people that you are promoted to understand and know and talk about are the chosen grabblers. We weren't even told about Nikola Tesla, who said that this dude was a fuzzy-haired crackpot and an idiot, and his theory of relativity was like a beggar clothed in purple linen that fools mistake to be a king, because it's a joke, bro. So, in conclusion, they had to get rid of the ether, so they implemented the theory of relativity. Mass and energy are interchangeable. There's a constant speed of light, and it imposes a property onto space of it being curved to explain the celestial bodies without the ether. They have to explain the celestial bodies without the ether, so they imposed curved on a privation of space. So it's literally nonsense. All right, let me come chat with you. Yeah, this is awesome. I don't know how all this works. Maybe it'll. Yeah, there we go. Look at this dude. I guess it doesn't show that. That's so funny, man. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm missing that we should glorify that dude. What did he do again? If there's any real big Einstein fans here, feel free to let us know what we're supposed to glorify him for. Like, what am I missing? What have I missed? He practiced uh, satanic belief systems, seances, stole all of his work, um, needed his wife to help, basically treated her subhuman, was told her not to show publicly that there was any form of affection between them two, cheated on her the entire time with young women, then divorced her, married his first cousin, and then wrote about wanting to have sex with her daughter. And then once she turned 20, he contemplated divorcing his first cousin to marry her stepdaughter. He was given the Nobel Prize for something he didn't do. He was falsely attributed to the idea of creating the atom bomb when all he did was get the theoretical idea from someone else who asked him to write a letter on his behalf. So he wrote a letter to the president, and then we were told basically that he had something to do with the atom bomb, and he didn't. He didn't even understand it. And again, the atom bomb isn't real. The question here is, why did they tell you that he's the one that created the theory of relativity? Why was he allowed to steal all of the mathematical, theoretical computing from actual smart people who were working through different theories? And then he was able to compile them all and then them be attributed to him, even though he couldn't even do basic math. He didn't even understand it. Now, am I saying Einstein was a complete idiot? No, he had some kind of processing ability, but he wasn't mathematically competent. So how would he do this? He wouldn't. The question is, why did we not hear about all of these different intricacies enveloped in his theory of relativity that existed before him as to where they actually came from, the actual sources? We were all only told about them, all attributed to him, and he stole them all. It doesn't make sense. It does, obviously. If you unplug from the box, it makes perfect sense. That is who they chose to propagate the derailment of science via the reification fallacy that is the theory of relativity. Indeed. Yeah, sorry about oh, I didn't know anything about the like the approving them, bro. I don't like it either. There's a way to change the settings about what gets held for approval? Cause I'll change it. Hold on a second. And so yeah, I know a lot of people that listen to me, they've heard me explain my take on the light thing, and I explained it a little earlier, but it's important to understand it because imposing the ideal that light is at a constant speed will never understand anything, bro. Like the double slit experiment. How could you possibly understand that if you're imposing, false connotation of light? It isn't a physical photon, bro. It just isn't. So it's important to understand that. And I don't want to be too reiterative, but you have to change it in chat settings or Creator Studio. Okay, cool. I can do it right now, I guess. I'll do this. I'll do it later. I'll be here, not doing. And indeed, it was culminating in the fake moon landings, no less. And how they propagated the Cold War idea for 40 years, I believe. Let me go double check that. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Look at that. I mean, that is wild, bro. I mean, how do we even let them do that kind of stuff to us? And how many people were actually afraid for most of those 40 years? 45 years? There are no nuclear weapons. Russia and America have pretty clearly been working together for a long time, and they work with other people for other people. America's a corporation. We have the world's strongest military. We're a very useful corporation, but we are a corporation. And you're a corporate entity, and that's why you're born, or that's why your birth certificate is printed on bond paper. It is on a bond. You are property of the government. That is a corporation. You're considered a corporate entity. And that's why on every government issued document, your name will be in all caps. Am I saying to trying to not pay any of your taxes and use your employee ID number and you have a special? No. Am I saying? I'm not saying any of that, bro. I'm just letting you know. It isn't a coincidence. It isn't just some random occurrence that your birth certificate's on bond paper, or that this country was founded by Masons, or that the road systems to Washington D.C. make a pentagram, or that the Washington Monument is a representation of the phallus stemming from the Egyptian mythology that Masonry believes in. Oh, nice. I'll put this up here. And I do agree that taxation is theft, but I'm not going to necessarily be the one that says, I don't know. Because, like, personally, I'm under the idea. I'm under the idea that, like Jesus said, give Caesar's what is Caesar's. So, I don't know. I wonder if Jesus actually did say that. But, you just, it is what it is. I do agree taxation is theft, certainly without adequate representation. And then they just keep on amping it up. And why are you entitled to my money? And, you're using my tax money to pay the interest on a loan of fiat currency from a private corporation on a private island that doesn't adhere to U.S. laws. What part of that has anything to do with American sovereignty or my rights? My physical labor creates the value in the tax money that you use to pay interest on the fiat mythical money to a private company. So yeah, taxation is definitely theft. Pretty wild. Oh yeah, my boy over here, Aussie. He knows what he's talking about, but I don't think you might not have been here from our number 6 stream, bro. But apparently, this platform doesn't take very kindly to you just being honest. So I will just redo the war stream on D Live. And just so you guys know, the theory of relativity is already been disproven. I mean, of course, it doesn't even go past the reification fallacy. It's a reification fallacy. He reified space, but the retarded, proposal that speed is a constant, or light is a constant speed, has been dismantled going all the way back to the 50s and the 60s based on their own observations with the presuppositions of the spherical nature of the earth and the rest of the sky. So the celestial bodies, more specifically. So even their own impositions do not work within the idea that there's a constant speed of light. Or the theory of relativity. Kepler's laws only work in the solar system. That's where you get dark matter and dark energy from. So what don't people understand, I guess, is the real question here. Like, they had to come up with dark matter because the galaxies were rotating too fast, or more specifically, dark energy derived from dark matter because the expansion was too fast. So the observations do not coincide with Kepler's laws and the application of the theory of relativity and gravitational waves within the solar system, which they explain the solar system. Really take this in. They explain the solar system because they were made based on what we saw in the solar system. The math wouldn't have even been done if it didn't coincide with the local observations of the solar system, but then it works nowhere else, and over 96% of the universe has to be some magical, undefined idea just so that they can keep it together. It is literally retarded to subscribe to something like that, much less to act like if we don't subscribe to it, we're retarded. And smart people understand the objective nature and the fact that you cannot attribute a property to a privation, and that the theory of relativity is a reification fallacy. It's just the way it is. It's important to understand because this is obviously without the propagation of the nonsense that is the theory of relativity, the conceptual abstraction of mathematical thievery that came from the incestuous grabbler that is Einstein. Without that, the heliocentric model would have been dismantled long ago, and ether would have been reintroduced. So it was obviously crafted, and that is why you have the front man Albert Einstein, who got all this other compilation of misguided interpretations, but they were smart when it came to the mathematical representations of the conceptual abstractions. And then he took that math because he couldn't even make up math to explain his own reifications, and he stole all the concepts themselves. It's wild. It's wild. It's wild because, if you don't know much about it, it's probably not that wild. But I mean, I'm kind of nerdy. I know that everything is based around that, false base presumption that is the theory of relativity. So it's crazy. Like, so the inventors of the modern electrical grid. So if we go listen to, Steinmetz, Charles Proto Steinmetz, Nikola Tesla, Faraday, we go listen to these people and we see what they say. Undeniably, the ether exists. The electron is nothing more than the terminal end of, 1 unit line of dielectric induction. The photon is nothing more than a dielectric pulse in the coaxial circuit that is the ether perturbation that we call light. And light isn't really a thing, right? We are just perceiving the illumination of the ether perturbation, and the speed of light is the rate of induction. But like if we don't have any base understandings of the universe, how can we ever progress? And my point was, they had those base understandings over 100 years ago. So it was meticulously crafted so that they would derail and devolve public access of information, public pursuit of knowledge, public science, and that the military, once obtaining the dynamic theory of gravity from Nikola Tesla, the inventor of the modern world, and most of his chess, they kept that for themselves. Obviously, compartmentalized deep within the corruption of the intel agencies within America, they have been expanding on this knowledge for a long time. Hence, of course, they have electrogravitic propulsion. How would they not have electrogravitic propulsion? It's impossible. And you have to understand, technology grows exponentially. So like, like for example, look at like the difference in the evolution of phones for the first 5 years to the next 5 years, the next 5 years. It keeps on growing at an exponential rate. That's what technology does. Now apply that idea to obtaining the dynamic theory of gravity long ago, and all of Tesla's works, which were insane, and then compounding on that for decades behind the scenes, and then keeping the sheeple useless eaters that they think we are on fossil fuel supplies, non-renewable resources. It's pretty wild. You just say you are exempt, and you are. Maybe. I've heard that. If you become too powerful, they will accuse you of that and have powerful laws to prosecute you if they can prove you channel a lot of money through your live stream. Well, I've gotten $0 through my live stream, so. But yeah, dude, I mean, they struck my sixth stream. That means I've been on YouTube for like a week and a half at that point or something. They struck the stream, exposing just American wars, bro. How do I not have the right as an American citizen whose dad fought for this country, whose friends have other friends that have died for this country? How do I not have the right as an American citizen to criticize the historicity of my country's involvement in regime changes? It is a laughable situation. You're allowed to talk about anybody. I can put a stream called White People Suck and just bash white people the whole time based purely on their race and holistically with prejudice. And I would probably get a golden star and high ad revenue. You know? So I think we all know what's going on here. It's obvious. You are not allowed to criticize those that control you. So if you are not allowed to criticize a certain group of people, that is who you should look at. It's the same thing with if you're not allowed to talk about flat Earth. Well, probably because the Earth is flat. And speaking of, the Earth is undeniably flat. We live in the era where we have literally death blow footage to the globe. No axial rotation has ever been proven. None. No, not the gyroscope. No, not the Foucault's pendulum. That's retarded. Doesn't even have an independent frame of reference. Inertial frames of reference. And not to mention, your deified, incestuous grabbler known as Einstein himself admitted that the movement of Earth has never been measured. He didn't think it ever could be measured. And this was in like 1913 or 1930. And Foucault's pendulum experiment was from 1851. So your own deified religious leader said that you're wrong. Because it's retarded, it doesn't even have an independent frame of reference. And there is no movement other than a slight drift within the ether field, the force field that is the ether, residing over the Earth. That is my assertion. But I can tell you one thing. Axial rotation does not exist. There is no axial rotation. That's retarded. There is no 23.4 degree tilt on an axis, which of course subtracted from 90 equals 66.6, right? And of course, we're going 66,600 miles per hour through the universe. If you ask Google, the approximate speed, 93 million, right? 936, 1666 gravity, 6.67 gravity, right? None of these are coincidences, but that's a little bit of a side tangent there. But basically, very simply, axial rotation has not been proven. Axial rotation cannot be proven, bro. How can you know the Earth is a magic cartoon spinning ball that defies the basic laws of physics if you can't prove that it's a ball or spinning? That's retarded. Curvature cannot be proven. They couldn't even prove it in a court of law for thousands of dollars. Axial rotation cannot be proven, but we can prove with all observation available, all of it, that there is no movement, right? All observation, all observable phenomena shows there is no movement. All experiments show there is no movement, all of them. There is no Earth movement, axial rotation, and all of our experiments show there aren't curve. There isn't curve. So if there's not curvature and there's not movement, it's a stationary plane. Now, if you can understand that, of course space isn't real because they say that it's a spinning ball and that they went to space. If they really went to space, they would, of course, know exactly what the ball is now, wouldn't they? They'd know exactly what the Earth is. And if they're lying about what the Earth is, they obviously cannot go to space. And that's common sense. Of course, they can't go to space because all the footage is faked. It's all admitted CGI. So, logically, if they have to lie to you about going to space, that means you cannot leave here. And that's what all observation, again, tells us, because the necessary antecedent to gas pressure is containment. Nature abhors a vacuum. A vacuum cannot exist linear to a pressurized system. The necessary antecedent to pressure is containment. People will say gradient. That is retarded. That is retarded. 14.7 psi at the surface level. Why is that? Because there's an introduction of gas at the surface level. Completely irrelevant. How do you explain away the necessary antecedent, or the lack of axial rotation being measured, or the curvature? Now, I know most of y'all might already know this stuff, but it's a 2020, man. The Earth is flat, bro. It's no big deal. It actually is a big deal, though, because it proves that you're important. That's why you need a sensual grabber to propagate a lie into the fantastical portions of your mind, into where you think, "Oh, I can't understand this. I can't understand that matter, or like mass equals energy. Oh, E equals MC squared. Oh, I don't understand it. Oh, look at this whole chalkboard of random little scribble scrabble coming from this incestuous grabbler that was probably like amped up on some crazy drugs while he was running around trying to have sex with anybody that would look at him for more than 3 seconds without thinking. He looked like a complete idiot. Have you seen this dude? Let's just look back at him. And bro, what the wildest part here is like, I can't. I mean, obviously you had to marry your cousin. Look at you, bro. Look at that dude. I can't even imagine a scenario laid out that would ever cause me to walk around looking like that. Yes, exactly. And of course, there is, the density is relative to the production of the gas. But you are right, sir. Um. So yeah, and I could have probably gone forever on Einstein, but it is what it is. I mean, I think we understand it. It the writing's all over the walls. If you're unplugged from the box, this is a layup to understand if you don't already know all of this, because he didn't do his own math, so that means he stole it. So why are we glorifying the thief unless we're supposed to glorify him because he was the chosen one? Of course he was. We were told about him. Edison, chosen. Monolithic figure. A figure complicit with the monolithic structure. Tesla was not, so we weren't told about it. So yeah, anyway, very simply, this dude was a grabbler, and it wasn't just his own little crazy motivations or like lame, selfish motivations for infamy and stuff that drove him. Like he had people behind him driving this agenda. So that's just what happened, bro. Like the world is a stage, and they don't leave these things up to chance. And don't worry, they were very successful. Look at modern science; it has devolved into quantum nonsense. Quantum, the need to quantify, even though everything can't be quantified because things are immaterial, such as ether or light. The dielectric pulse, immaterial. Terminal end of one unit line of dielectric induction, immaterial. The ether perturbation that is light, immaterial, right? And again, light isn't really necessarily even a thing. We perceive the illumination of the ether perturbation, disturbance in the ether. Of course, it's a frequency, right? And there's a rate of induction. There is no speed. So I hope y'all maybe understand that. Perturbation, disturbance in the ether, derivation of the ether, modality of the ether. Everything is ether perturbation modalities. Everything. Matter itself is an ether modality. And that's why everything in the universe is dielectric, electrostatic more specifically. And that's why we have gravity, which is negligible. We don't need the word. It doesn't exist. It isn't a force. It is not an autonomous field modality, which means it is not a force. It isn't a force. So I know I'm just going on, but that's what I do. Yeah, Einstein was asked to say something like to explain something. The media asked him to like explain to like the average person his theory, and he's like, if you talk to a really pretty girl for an hour, it'll feel like a minute. But if you put your hand on a stove for a minute, it'll feel like an hour. Oh, well, damn, bro. Space clearly is curved then. We don't need ether. Yeah, I understand that people don't like the ether, man. But hey, bro, all I know is it explains the observable phenomena in my assertion, bro. It's not about what you need, it's about what's there. We need something. We can't explain instantaneous action at a distance, brother. Now, one experiment or demonstration can be presented that proves beyond reasonable doubt we all experience this reality in any other orientation except in an upright orientation. Yeah, exactly. That's what happens. Agreed. Agreed. Well said. Um, so, yeah, I mean, I just think that, uh, and here's the deal. I understand that people have been told to think that the ether doesn't exist, and thus they think they know, right? But bro, I'll give you a chance, okay? I'm gonna put your comment up there, bro. We're just having a conversation with you, bro. But my man doesn't think there's ether, okay? So we're just gonna have a conversation and see if he can enlighten me, because I don't know everything. Now, the reason that I subscribe to ether existing, bro, there's only two proposals to understand the natural world ever in the history of mankind, and this goes all the way back to like pre-Greek. Okay, it's atomism, physical little subatomic charge carrying particles, quantum, and then there is ether. Okay, now if you adopt the cult of bombarding particles known as atomism, which I consider religious doctrine because it's just purely conceptual, theoretical abstractions. If you adopt that or subscribe to that, then that means that light is a physical particle known as the photon. Follow me here, bro. There is a reason why I believe this, right? Okay, light being a photon traveling from point A to point B, if it goes through water or glass and then it slows down and speeds back up, that breaches the law of conservation of energy because there is not an external force introduced once it exits the medium. So, if it is traveling from point A to point B as a physical particle, it would be impossible in the observation, the observable phenomena, because it would breach the law of conservation of energy. And the other one for you is they shot a laser through a vacuum chamber and it was completely unaffected by the pressurized conditions of the vacuum chamber, which of course it would be if it was a physical particle. But then they came up with the introduction of the conceptual abstraction, quantum energy, until they squeezed pure nothingness. Don't worry, I got another one for you, bro. Can you explain instantaneous action at a distance? Instantaneous, which means it's instant, action at a distance, if it is a constant speed traveling from A to B in a linear path. Can you explain instantaneous action at a distance? Can you explain the laser through the water or the glass? Can you explain the laser through the vacuum chamber? Can you explain wireless power induction in a vacuum chamber because the electron also wasn't affected by the pressurized conditions? They know there's a field there. They're naming it something different because the theory of relativity cannot coexist with ether. So that's why I don't truly understand why people are so hesitant to entertain it. Because if you know the Earth, if you know the heliocentric model is a lie, that means the theory of relativity is obviously a lie, and it's a reification fallacy. It's objectively nonsense. And so, if the theory of relativity isn't real, and the whole reason science can't acknowledge ether is the theory of relativity, yet they're saying there's a field there, they just can't call it the ether because it can't coexist with the theory of relativity. And you've gotten farther along enough to know that there is no theory of relativity. The next logical step is to accept the fact that ether explains all observable phenomena and atomism does not. So let's see what you said. So, I'm trying to think who. Oh, it's this guy. In the vacuum, the laser was not visible. Did the laser travel unimpeded? It actually was. It was more effective. That's a concept non-existent. It does not exist. What doesn't exist? I'm sorry. I guess this is not. I should have watched maybe live. Well, thank you for your explanation. Yeah, I mean that's just where I stand, bro. I dropped out of college, bro, but I'm not dumb, and I researched it, and I think as long, again, agree to disagree, bro. Like it's not a huge deal at all. Like it's much bigger deal to me that we all unify and we obliterate the religion that is heliocentrism, that has devolved science, that has removed our connection to creation, that has increased apathy and nihilism and malleability when it comes to authoritative figures controlling us. It's devolved all science. It's devolved society. That's the most important thing. Okay, but I mean, we should still have conversations about how the electron is not a physical particle. It's the terminal end of one unit line of dielectric induction. Because everything is fields and fields are immaterial. You cannot quantify the immaterial. It's really not a big deal. It doesn't mean that what we quantify as electrons don't exist. There is a gap in the terminal line of dielectric induction. It doesn't just like dismantle all electrical field theory or anything like that. In fact, it coincides with the actual origin of the electrical field theory that gave us the very electrical grid we have to this day. Um, so and so I like you that you're willing to have this intricate of a conversation or like challenge it or whatever. That's all that matters is thinking for yourself. So, but I just wanted to make sure you know where I'm at. You need matter to see light on. Yeah. Okay. Well, you see the illumination of the perturbation, right? And then, but this is the problem, bro, with like quantum physics. It says that light is a wave and a particle, but it's not, bro. Like it's not a particle because that's disproven with the laser going through the water. It can't be. It would breach the law of conservation of energy. It isn't a wave because a wave isn't a thing. A wave is an effect. It travels in a transversal coaxial circuit, right, along the longitudinal dielectric fields. But it has a waving circuit, but it isn't a wave. It's an ether perturbation. It's an ether modality. So that's just where I stand. It makes the most sense. It explains the observable phenomena. So if you see on the other side, that means it passed through it. Yeah, exactly. And how did it pass through? What's being challenged here is if it's a physical particle, what happened, bro? That's what's being asked. It's like, why is it not affected? And I know those people just say light doesn't need a medium. It's like, yeah, it does. Yeah, actually, it does. Okay, I obviously think it needs the ether. But even the scientists that did that experiment said that there was quantum energy involved and they squeezed pure nothingness, but that there was an energy. They are acknowledging the field. They cannot call it the ether. So I think a lot of people just don't even know that. And I will say this. I think that some pretty prominent, smarter flat earthers know that this has potential to get us kind of sidetracked into where we're talking about something we don't really know for sure. And that's what got us into trouble when it came to the heliocentric model, right? So I can understand that train of thought, but I think it's pivotal because if you can wake up someone that's like they're like, whoa, I didn't know that modern science was this devolved or this off the mark or potentially this off the mark. And their own scientists, admit that it's possible that it's off the mark. And it's undeniable. And it's been suppressed since like the 50s and 60s and 70s. But if someone can be like, whoa, I didn't know all that, maybe it'll wake them up where they're like, dude, if modern science is potentially this far off the mark and they had to create the conceptual abstraction known as dark matter, maybe there is something to this whole entire questioning of the model of the earth. So that's why I think it's important. And of course, even beyond that, I look at it like the next little Nikola Tesla that comes through school, if he's put into a public indoctrination camp where they're teaching him about the electron, this physical particle that simply isn't there, it's just the gap in the terminal line of dielectric induction. We're hindering our betterment as a society, or the improvement of our understanding of the natural world. And I'm tired of seeing authoritative monopolistic figures keeping us dependent on this facade of non-renewable resources. And in order to overcome that, we need a more thorough understanding of electrical field theory, and we should go listen to the same people that gave us the very electrical field theory that we still use to this day. The electrical grid that we still use to this day came from the same fatherheads: Nikola Tesla, Charles Proto Steinmetz, Faraday, Maxwell. These people knew what they were talking about. And they all said the ether was undeniably real. So that's just where I stand. You feel me? Yeah, of course. You cannot see the sun when in space. That's your answer right there, bro. Space is not real. Space is not real, man. And there's no such thing as a perfect vacuum. because of course there's hydrogen atoms per cubic meter, but you can just see it because light is only seen on matter, and there's no matter in a vacuum. You just can't see it. Bro, the question is, how did the laser travel unimpeded? How did the electrons and the wireless power induction travel unimpeded? And let's just stick with the real simple one. The real simple one. If you shoot light through water, how does it slow down and speed back up without breaching the law of conservation of energy if it's a physical photon traveling from point A to point B with a constant speed? Let's just stick with that one. Also, instantaneous action at a distance obliterates that idea. And yeah, I don't want to just. What do you call the room outside the dome? Heaven. The heavens. Doesn't have to have some religious connotation. It's the heavens. That's what I think. I think it's beyond our comprehension, and that's why these people that know the true nature of this earth, they can't accept it. It's just like human nature. If you show them that they have 400 acres to live on and they have unlimited supplies of everything they could ever need, but there's a fence around them, the humans will go to the fence and be like, "What's beyond this fence?" Especially when you have no reverence for the Creator. Then you'll try and buck the system. And I personally think they've been trying to get through that thing for thousands of years. Nothing new under the sun. You're not saying it speeds up or slows down, but that's what I'm saying to you, bro, is that when the light goes, it dips down and then it comes back out of the medium. Can you explain how it does that if it's a physical particle known as a photon without breaching the law of conservation of energy? And light doesn't need a medium is not a valid answer. Because I don't just want to believe the ether or something. I mean, it's the only thing that can explain the observable phenomenon, bro. And I've done pretty diligent research into them inadvertently admitting the force field that is the ether. They just call it different things because ether in its entire connotation and understanding cannot coexist with the relativity. That's why relativity was introduced. Show me it slows down. So formulate your argument, bro. What are you saying that it does? Formulate your argument. And you can't explain instantaneous action at a distance. It's not a big deal, man. Whatever. You haven't offered anything substantive, so I'm not saying that I could never be convinced that the ether isn't real, but you certainly are doing it. You're not arguing anything, bro. I'm not blocking people that argue with Austin because it's how he wants it to be exactly. It's kind of a message to the other mods. When someone's actually trying to have a relevant conversation, I encourage that. But I don't encourage ad homs and all the gamma stuff, So okay, never mind. Have your ether. Well, bro, I mean, it just explains observable phenomena. It's no big deal. But here, I just want you. Maybe you haven't heard it, bro. So I don't know if you think the Earth is a magic spinning cartoon ball. If you know the Earth is flat and you just dispute the ether, I don't know. So I'm just speaking to people in general, Man, this dude is typing. What's up, my man? I'm sorry. I have to get used to this. How to do all this. We'll figure it out. So, okay, you flat disputing ether. Well, then, hey, bro, we're on the same team. Kind of. You can't explain observable phenomena, but it's all good, bro. Like, agree to disagree as a message to everyone else. But I will continue to explain it because I think it's of crucial importance. Personally, I want you to understand why I think this. Okay, if we apply the understanding of light being an ether perturbation and ether existing being the absolute frame of reference, we can explain everything I just said to you. Because the ether is independent of a vacuum chamber. It's ever existed. The pressurized conditions of a vacuum are irrelevant to the ether existing there, right? It's the absolute frame of reference. if the universe was a pond, it'd be the water, and the ripples are what we see as observable phenomena. So if light is an ether perturbation, you can explain why it appears to slow down, speed back up. It's not. It's an ether perturbation relative to the variant factors, including the mediums. And of course, the most prominent, important medium is the ether. It doesn't travel from point A to point B. It's a rate of induction into the ether. It's a transversal perturbation. So that explains it. Instantaneous action at a distance. Ether perturbation explains that. Physical photon from point A to point B cannot explain it. Wireless power induction in a vacuum chamber. If you know that the ether, again, is not reliant on any form of the pressurized conditions to exist, it's independent of it, then of course it works just normal. It works perfectly normal. Wireless power induction in a vacuum is because the ether's there. I don't have to come up with quantum energy, quantum foam, quantum fields, dark energy, dark matter. They have like 20 different names of different characteristics, but really they're all characteristics within the force field of the ether. So you can understand the disconnect here. I have a grasp of what the ether is. I use people's definitions such as Nikola Tesla, very successful inventor, invented the modern world. And then they say stuff like dark matter. Dark means we don't know, and matter means everything has to be material. That's a false assumption. Everything does not have to be material. There are immaterial things such as light, such as the ether, dielectric pulses, terminal end of dielectric induction, the electron. Those are all immaterial. Quantum needed to quantify on the quanta scale, so they started attributing materialistic properties to the immaterial so that they could count them. They could quantify them. Quantum science, quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and it's literally theoretical conceptual abstractions without observation of the physicality imposed on these particles. There aren't charge-carrying particles. There isn't positive, negative charge-carrying particles. There's only charge and discharge. So, yeah, that's my take, bro. The light needs an atmosphere. Were you not just here when we talked about the whole laser in a vacuum chamber, bro? Yeah, no, you're cool, bro. I like it. I like enjoy it. So as long as you don't get offended by my assertive tone, that's just like how I speak, you know. Seems like a lot of people get offended nowadays. That's cool, but if you've been theorizing it for 20 years, can you explain to me instantaneous action at a distance? All right, if you start spamming the chat, you will definitely get removed. Because I have to now go through all of this nonsense. Hey, there you go. Boom. Not the perfect medium. Let me see if I can get down here to where you're live, and then we'll see what we got. Dude, stop spamming the chat, bro. Type one coherent statement out, bro. My goodness. Body's projected unseen. Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Either if you spam the chat again, you're out, bro. What is that? That is textbook gamma stuff, bro. Come on. Nobody's trying to deal with that. Okay. I'll talk about what I want to. This is my live, bro. The reason that it's all relevant to Einstein, light is incredibly relevant to Einstein. He imposed a constant speed on light. So, come on, man. How is light? Light is obviously relative. All quantum physics is relative, pun intended. It's all relevant to this conversation because the theory of relativity is why we are forced to interpret observations in the confinement of there being no ether. Factually. That is why I did a whole stream on the incestuous graveler. He devolved and derailed science, and so now we need to correct it. We need to pivot. It's no big deal, it's no big deal. But that's what happened. The theory of relativity is what causes us to interpret these things of physicality, particles, constant speeds, no ether. But everything is fields. If everything's fields, fields are immaterial. Fields are not quantifiable. So it's a destined to oblivion, futile pursuit to explain the universe without the ether, just like Nikola Tesla said. So I think it's important. I'm just some college dropout, but that doesn't mean that I don't have the processing capability to understand information. And that's my main message to people: is don't let people with credentials shy you away from conversations. You know what I'm saying? Because that it doesn't matter. And a lot of times, which don't get me wrong, I know some very smart people with credentials. I respect them. I like having conversations with them, bouncing ideas off them, etc. But like a lot of the times, some of the smarter people, that actually becomes a detriment to them because they applied their intellect to full comprehension of flaw-based presumptions, or the work derived off that. So like really smart people understand some of the complexities of these conversations, but all based off the inaccurate base assumption. So the presumption has kind of caused them to be harder to maybe think about it not being right. And that's why I call them indoctrination camps. So I just think it's important that we have conversations like this. And I think, Nikola Tesla dropped out of school. Einstein dropped out of school, which of course he did. Or he wasn't even like accepted into the next school. He couldn't even pass the engineering test. But what I'm saying is you can be impactful and correct in education or not. So don't let people shy you away because they have a piece of paper. That means nothing, bro. It means nothing. And I've had that happen to me my whole life. People try to shut me down. People that are supposed to be my friends used to think I was crazy for talking about the flat earth, right? Which now they don't. And I'd be talking to them about the intricacies of some of the conversations, and they're like, there are people way more qualified than you to talk about this. I'm like, shut up, bro. Like you're supposed to be my friend, right? Like you're trying to shut down my free critical assessment because I don't have a piece of paper. So don't let people do that, bro. Do not let people shy you away or intimidate you, because it's bullcrap. And now that dude knows that what I've been saying for years, he's starting to come around and realize, wow, I just refuse to actually be non-biased and look into it. It's not about the complexities of the flat earth. The evidence is pretty overwhelming once you unplug from the box. It's about getting someone to actually even unplug from the box or entertain it. For example, like the Black Swan video going around, and then we had a similar video from Ben that we looked at on Globebusters a few weeks ago. And I said then too, it's like, this is damning. I was watching this and I was thinking, am I missing something? This is damning. This can't even be refuted. And then, we all agreed on the panel, yeah, it is. It's damning. And then this Black Swan thing has gone viral, which I personally think is awesome, because it's just a concise, presentation of the argument. And the argument is that the sphericity of the Earth, the imposed sphericity of the Earth, has a geometric horizon, a physical geometric horizon. And so if at 1 foot observer height, which is why I personally like that example because it's so low, but it doesn't matter. Even Ben's same point here, right? The horizon is provably apparent, and there isn't a geometric horizon where it's supposed to be, and you cannot use refraction as a sufficient explanation. So the Black Swan is damning evidence to the globe. It isn't that we're just now getting it, but I like it. I think it's awesome. And I know no one can answer it. No one can answer. I've had no one answer it. I've had dumb people say refraction. Of course, you'll hear the parroting regurgitation. I've had someone say you have to check the topography of the ocean floor. I've had someone say that we don't know all the factors of the refractive index. I'm like, you aren't understanding the argument. It is about the horizon behind these structures without a geometric horizon where it is supposed to be. And in order for this Earth to be a ball, there is a physical geometric drop, a geometric horizon. So you then have to concede the horizon's apparent. Dun dun dun. Welcome to flat Earth. That's what we have been saying for years. The Earth, of course, the horizon is apparent. Yeah, looming. Looming is one of the things that they'll say. One of the effects of refraction is looming. That is to show the image back up over the horizon. How you're looming the horizon over the horizon? They cannot refute it. It's 2020. The globe is dead, and we need to all come together. We need to all just throw the irrefutable evidence in the face of the globers, because they can deny it as long as they want to deny it. They can't refute it. They can't offer a substantive rebuttal, right? They typically don't even understand the arguments. They're like, oh, well, they start talking about the structures, and you're like, it's not about the structures. It's about the horizon behind the structures. How do you understand it? It's simple. And so we need to break them down, these concise, irrefutable, straight to the point little videos where it's just a 3-minute, 4-minute, 5-minute refutal of the nonsensical religion that is heliocentrism, that is the heliocentric model. I love it. I'm all for it. And I think we need to keep. No one can answer it. No one can answer it. It's wild to watch them squirm, run away, attack you with ad hominem attacks, etc. But none of that matters. You know you have the truth on your side. You just let them expose them for the, possessing the stupidity that they clearly do, and then you just continue to speak the truth. Because I had this dude post a meme making fun making fun of flat earthers, and I get on there and I'm like, bump the brakes, bro, and then I offer the video, and then there's 48 hours of just people bashing me, and no one responded. One person said refraction, and obviously he got buried because that isn't a sufficient answer. It isn't. The evidence is irrefutable. So that's why I like it being so concise, and that's why we said when Ben premiered the video on Globebusters a few weeks ago, and we all talked about, like, this is a death blow. It's wild. So, like, the globe is literally dead. The globe doesn't exist, provably. Provably, there isn't a geometric horizon, thus it isn't a ball. So just to touch on that, because I'm super, super pro spamming those videos all over the place. And now we know what we need to look for. We need to look the best that we can. We need to get that footage with the horizon behind it. They don't know what to do. They haven't even come up. They're switching their arguments. Now all of a sudden there is a geometric horizon, even though they've been saying for years that the ship has been disappearing from the bottom up due to a physical geometric horizon. Now that isn't the case. Now the horizon's apparent. Well, thank you. Now you're a flat earther. Nice to have you on the team, because yes, we know that it's apparent, because it's simply the limit of perspective. This is provable with tests, right? Like the boat appears to disappear, then we bring it back. That proves tangibly it's because of limit of perspective. If you stand at the end of a long hallway, it appears that the walls and the ceiling and the floor are converging. They are not. It is limit of perspective. Of course, we've known this. It's apparent horizon. It's an apparent horizon. But now they're going to have to admit that, or they're just going to have to expose their lack of cognitive grasp of the argument, which serves the purpose all as well. Either someone's going to be open-minded enough to realize, oh, damn, we can't respond to this, or they're going to stay in their indoctrination bubble and stay plugged into the box willfully. You can do nothing about that, right? That's why I put in my descriptions, we can only show you the box. We cannot make you unplug. That's very, very real. You cannot make someone unplug. You can only show them. So do not waste your time constantly trying to make someone pull that plug out, maybe if it's a loved one or something, right? But you present the information, and then you keep it pushing. We have literal, irrefutable evidence now, okay? And so once someone is sitting there and they can't explain it after 48 hours, a week, they can't explain the black swan, then what do? Then you've kind of shaken them up a little bit, and then you're like, okay, has axial rotation ever been proven? Has the movement of Earth ever been proven? Have we ever proved the spin of the Earth? No. The necessary antecedent to gas pressure is a container, factually. Can you respond to that? Then they'll start to realize, oh, all of these arguments I've been brushing off hold a lot of weight, right? Like water finds level, 70% of the world is water. That's important. That's a valid point. You know, can we prove what the core is? Because the core is pivotal to this religion. So it's a good time to be alive, bro. And this is cool because I think God's revealing to the world in real time that He's real. You can disagree with me if you want to. It it's an opinion, okay? But I'm quite positive God's real, and He's revealing to the world that He's real. That means this cannot be stopped. We live in the time of the truth being revealed. Do your part. Do your part and wake people up. Stand in the face of ostracization, societal pressure, right? Who cares? You have the truth on your side. And for those of you that are still asleep and plugged into the box, it's time to wake up. It's 2020 and the globe is dying. It is dead. The heliocentric model is literally imploding, crumbling in on itself, and we're simply trying to pull you from the debris before you potentially get trapped into this depravity and morbidity that is heliocentrism. And then that's how it's needed for evolution and the Big Bang and all of this. And alien deception. No problem, dude. Much love. Yeah, I will respond to this about Einstein's wife writing stuff. It is disputed. It's disputed. And of course, someone that likes him is going to dispute it. But, we read his letter where I'm just reading his letter, He says, oh, I forgot I got to share. All I'm saying is he does indeed say, of course, Forbulas trying to explain this away. He says, let's give it context. And they say he's clearly really in love here. What does that have to do with what he's saying, dude? I also assure you that no one here either dares to or wants to say anything bad about you. How happy and proud I will be when the two of us together. How happy and proud I will be when the two of us together will have brought our work on relative motion to a successful conclusion, which means that it's been an ongoing process until it is brought to the successful conclusion. Obviously, the use of the pronouns and the possessive plural pronouns there are pretty self-explanatory. So, dun dun dun. Hey, what do y'all think about this background, by the way? I'm curious what y'all think. I guess y'all can't really see it, but because I'm trying to decide. Anyway, we'll figure it all out. Who cares? Oh, and then I guess I've already been on it for a couple hours. I'll get off in a second. I am, of course, which I gave my word, so I'm going to do it. But I'm almost like I'm exhausted even really thinking about it. I might tell them that I want to do it at the same time, but I'm supposed to debate like a handful of people, like I call him McToon from the Toon Squad, Craig from Fight the Flat Earth, some other dude that won't leave me alone, a couple other people. I guess I will debate them. I will debate them. I said I would, but just you know how they are. And I'm not gonna get on there. That dude's not gonna talk to me like that. So, we'll see how that goes. And I think McToon is a decently nice guy, but the other dude needs to chill, bro. The globe is dead, bro. What's he gonna say? What is he gonna say, bro? Like the most desperate thing I've heard so far is the topography of the ocean floor. What does that have to do with the horizon? It's crazy, bro. And I'm guessing people don't understand the argument, but it's really pretty simple. In fact, it's incredibly simple. It's incredibly simple. I just watched the video live time and was like, oh, this is damning. This refutes the globe model. It's not complicated. I don't see how people don't understand it. I think it's probably just indoctrination. Yeah, this is certainly possible right here. Coronavirus is delaying next trip to the moon. I bet it is, bro. Dude, Jaren calls that all the time. We all call it all the time. They're going to put the moon trip off every couple of years. They're going to put it off 4 more years. They're already encouraging them to put it off to 28, which it was supposed to be 24. I didn't know that that was their excuse, but it's all retarded. Exactly. The horizon cannot be refracted behind items and miles beyond where the geometric horizon should be. Because it's that simple. It is a physical geometric horizon. It, it has to be, according to their model. And there's an apparent horizon way beyond it, way beyond it. Therefore, globe dead. I can't believe these people still want to debate me. That's what I told Matuna. I'm like, you do realize we officially are on the winning side now. The debate is over. I'm like, so I have to give you some respect, I guess, for willfully walking into the slaughter. What am I missing? And he can't. Axial rotation's never been proven. But we don't even have to get into all the other questions. It's like you can't explain a 3-minute clip. Well, the argument is very simply that the geometric horizon has to exist for the Earth to have the imposed sphericity of the heliocentric model. It has to be there. And they've been saying that's there all this time. That's why boats disappear. And of course, they have to say it's there. That's what their religion entails, you know what I'm saying? But we all know the horizon is not a real place. It's an apparent horizon. It is a limit of perspective. Brenda will say there's a geometric horizon as well. I don't think I've heard that one yet. Well, that's moronic. There's clearly not. Wow, that's a first. That shows you how desperate these people are to protect their bubble of indoctrination, bro. It's wild. Just like a bunch of these scientists are so desperate to protect their heliocentric religion and their theory of relativity, the little baby, that they'll just make up things like squeezed pure nothingness instead of conceding the theory of relativity. It's just nonsense. Did I see your video, dude? I don't know who you are. You sound familiar, though. I'm sorry. I forget people, man. Because you sound super familiar. So sorry. I should know you. But email me. I don't know if you sent what you sent it on. Sorry. I may have looked at it. I may have not. People send me so many videos. But yeah, smash the Rogan's up button and sub if you enjoy and you haven't. Hit a little notification, but definitely smash the like button because that helps me with the algorithms. And we call it the Rogan's Up because Joe Rogan looks like a human thumb, and he is the gatekeeper of information you're allowed to talk about. And so once you backtrack on the moon landing, yeah, you're a grabbler in my book. Gets his talking points from a side. So yeah, hit the Rogan's Up, please. I'm just watching out for Austin. Yeah, thanks for that, bro. I did already hit with the strike, but I will fix my settings to where you can pretty much say whatever you want to. But know that once I do that, the odds of you maybe getting banned are. I'm not real big on like promoting monolithic thought. I am staunchly opposed to it. Dogmas is the death of knowledge. I don't want to create an echo chamber. I like ideas being challenged. That's how you grow. As long as it's intellectual, it has some form of intellectual depth. I can't just be arguing with idiots, But if it's sincerity and substance involved in whatever is being presented, I'm all for it. Any other news? I don't know. I was thinking. I'll just briefly go over some random things like Kobe Bryant. Clearly, some form of Masonic subliminal thing going on there. Pretty obvious, right? The question is why. I don't know. But I don't want to get too unrelated. It's all good. I might go D live tomorrow during the day or something. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll check this. I'll check that out. It sounds like something I would love to watch. It's like hard for me to know who's talking to who, but I'm about to get out of here. But it's pretty cool. I like the new stream. I'll get a little better, and then I'll guess this dude wants to debate me or whatever. I'll try and let y'all know in advance. He just like I told him I would debate him if he'd shut up, and then I ended up forgetting I already had plans and I was busy, and so he screenshotted where I said I would, and then I couldn't, and like went around stalking me, posting it everywhere, saying I was scared to debate him. So I guess his little subversive gamma tendency worked out because I agreed to again, and then he ran away. Probably because he can't answer just the black swan. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is when people want to debate, I can add them in on here. It's pretty cool. So we could have up to 6 people technically. So this platform is going to be good for some guests coming soon. So debates coming soon, guests coming soon, going to be guests on other shows soon. And of course, I'm going to make like video content as well and some presentations, etc. So there's a lot of stuff coming. I was 2 years old when we supposed to land on the moon. Apparently, I watched it now. That's pretty funny. Yeah, you're wearing a diaper, so that had to be the astronauts. Yep. That about sums it up. Yeah, technically a vacuum is not nothing. All right, cool. So yeah. Anyway, a lot of stuff coming. There's some links down below to support if you want to. Of course, smashing the Rogans up and subbing, sharing is support. Furthering the message is support. Honestly, that's my main motivation, clearly. So yeah, like I always say in conclusion, unplug from the box. It's just a metaphorical ideological box that keeps you tuned into this facade of life, and it promotes depravity and morbidity and apathy and nihilism and materialism, and it keeps you in this ideological box where you're more malleable and controllable, right? Like you're harder to conquer if you have something to fight for, and meaning itself, what could be more worth fighting for than that? And if you know this earth is geocentric, it's stationary, and everything revolves over top of you, you're obviously created. And if you know you're created, then that means you're important and that God's real. And they don't want you to know that. So unplug from the box. We can only show you the box, though. We can only show you the box. History's a lie. The world's a stage. It's this clown world. You do not live on this cartoon spinning ball that defies the basic laws of physics. That's all CGI, where water conforms to the exterior of spinning objects, all based around the orbital trajectory stemming from the theory of relativity, which is a reification fallacy that came from this ancestral graveler right here. Okay, so unplug from the box, and I will catch up with y'all tomorrow night. I don't know what the stream will be about, but we'll figure it out. So, yeah, love.